last name is De Schinkel, you're either like a mythical gremlin-esque creature from a fairy tale, or you're a villain designed to give Mads Mikkelsen and his friends a hard time. It's one of the two. It's gonna be one of the two. So, Mads Mikkelsen is just one of those actors that instantly grabs your attention when you hear he's in something. You know, ever since I first saw him, I want to say, in the James Bond movie Casino Royale, nearly 20 years ago at this point, I think the man has always been consistently great, you know, no matter what he's in. And again, maybe the film or the series or material itself might not be amazing, but I feel like it's safe to say, you know, he's always consistently good. He always adds something to it. You know, he adds a certain gravitas to the project he's in. You know, from Hannibal Lecter to Grindelwald, he just adds some class to his projects and the productions. Really, honestly, just shame on the studios and filmmakers that just underutilize him. You know, I'm looking at you, Lucasfilm, especially after Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But, you know, outside of his, you know, English language work, which I feel like most people are familiar with, you know, Mikkelsen has also a huge body of work in terms of foreign films, you know, some of which I've seen, but certainly not everything. And, you know, when I heard about The Promised Land, Mikkelsen's latest foreign project, you know, I was intrigued, especially when it was described as a brutal Nordic Western that seemed inspired by classic American Westerns, but also European historical epics. You know, I loved everything that honestly I was hearing and seeing. And the fact that it was on the Oscar shortlist for Best Foreign Films of 2023, it was in the top 15, I was even more excited. But again, for those that need a little bit more info in terms of a synopsis for the movie, it's based on the book The Captain and Anne Barbara, and it follows a retired and nearly impoverished Danish soldier in the 18th century who wishes to cultivate a vast stretch of uninhabited land, but a merciless and greedy nobleman feels threatened by the budding community and starts a violent conflict that escalates and grows bloodier with each passing day. And honestly, before jumping into the review proper, I also wanted to show you guys the trailer, since I feel like not many people have actually seen it. Especially here in the United States. So let me go ahead and get that ready for you guys, because I think it's a fantastic trailer, and it gives you a sense of what the movie is about. I think it does a pretty good job. So here's the trailer for The Promised Land.
Ludvig Kahlen. Velkommen til Halgås. Du vil forsøge at dyrke heden.
Jeg vil bygge kongens første koloni derude.
Det är fantastiskt det du är igång med. Jag får redan en känsla av liv här ute.
Heden er Guds natur i al sin pragt. Hvorfor kastrere et vildt bæst, der bare gerne vil være frit?
Han har Gud netop ikke sat mennesker på jorden for at skabe civilisation.
Gud er kaos. Livet er kaos.
Nej, krig er kaos. Men vinderen er den, som kan finde ud af at kontrollere kaos.
Du kan mænge dig med de fine folk. Jeg må væk herfra.
Vi vill fan inte dö, för det är ett helt projekt.
Hold dig væk fra heden. Er det forstået?
Kaosen.
I think it's a very slick trailer, Chad. I think it does a great job of capturing the style in the movie, but also giving you a sense of what the story is about. And you know, again, along with the trailer being very good, in my opinion, I am so happy to say that the film itself is too. And you know, I would go even further and say that it's excellent and probably the best movie I've seen so far in 2024 alongside American Fiction. I know both those movies technically had their releases in 2023, but in terms of just stuff that I've seen so far this new year, this movie, The Promised Land, American Fiction are some of the best films that I've had the pleasure of watching in a theater. And if you're a fan of Westerns, historical dramas, or even survivalist movies, like grisly, gritty survivalist movies, then I believe The Promised Land is a film I think you're going to just really enjoy. In terms of its aesthetics, the film is gorgeous. I love the cinematography and the fact that they shot most of the film on location in countries like Germany and Sweden and the Czech Republic. It really immerses you in the beauty of this land, but also just how scary and cold and brutal it can be. There are some sequences that I feel like it's out of like a gothic horror film. You kind of got the sense of that after watching the trailer, and it just makes you feel so uneasy and uncomfortable, and to me, in the best way possible. The production design is all on point, and I think it perfectly captures that 18th century setting, from the opulent, gilded estates, to the very, very humble, cold, austere homes of the peasant and the common folk. It just makes you happy that you live in a time period like the 21st century. There's just so many scenes in this movie where it looks so horrifically cold and wet and miserable, and it just made me shudder a bit just watching these characters suffer through so many harsh conditions. And speaking of characters, these actors across the board, I think, are doing a great job. From the rich nobleman to the suffering commoners, they perfectly inhabit their roles. Now, a lot of these actors and characters have very difficult names to pronounce. A lot of them are from the Netherlands or from Sweden and all these other countries. So instead of referencing everyone as Swedish Chef number 1, 2, and 3, I'll highlight several of the characters instead by their names given in the movie. Obviously, Mikkelsen is great as Captain Ludvig Kahlen. He's a good man, with noble intentions, but he soon learns he has to do many seemingly abhorrent things in order to keep his struggling settlement alive and steadily growing. He's pushed to his limits and constantly stressed throughout the movie, and clearly wants to maintain a sort of civility to his actions. But, that is an impossibility with the psychotic and manipulative magistrate Frederik De Schinkel. That just sounds like a villain name. If your last name is De Schinkel, you're either like a mythical gremlin-esque creature from a fairy tale, or you're a villain designed to give Mads Mikkelsen and his friends a hard time. It's one of the two. It's gonna be one of the two. The actor's name is Simon Ben-Zerg, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but he's equally great. He's just relishing playing such a disturbed, psychotic character, despite, being wrapped in the finest of silks and fashions of the time. He's a brute with layers of sass on top of it that makes him even more repellent and grotesque. He just does these little things, these smarmy things where he doesn't even have to, that just make you just hate him all the more, and just shows just what a smug, overconfident, and mean-spirited person that he truly is. And I think the actor is just relishing playing such a broadwall. It's not quite mustache twirling villain. He doesn't go that extreme, but you get the sense that this guy has lived a life of complete comfort, has never had anyone say no to him at all, and he's petulant and spoiled and nasty, and that's what's made him psychotic, and feeling like he can do anything without any sort of consequences. And he is completely overindulgent in his worst aspects. And lastly, in terms of the cast, Amanda Collins, who was in that HBO series Raised by Wolves. It was the sci-fi show by Ridley Scott. She played that mother android that was raising all those kids and did like a shitty job, and all those goddamn kids ended up dying shit, except for one, I suppose. But she's also quite good in this as Anne Barbara. You know, she plays this escaped serf. If people don't know, like a serf, that's basically like an indentured servant, you know, who is attempting to hide from De Schinkel and ends up in a relationship with Mickelson's character later on in the movie. She gets one of the best and bloodiest moments in the film. One that is both shocking and very well earned, especially, you know, what happens to her throughout the movie. And I think it was quite good and also quite graphic. The film's violence is incredible as well. It's not over stylized in any way. You know, like something out of Argyle most recently, which, you know, Argyle, which that felt like an unfunny parody of itself most of the time. The violence and the brutality here is always nasty, cruel, and cold. It's mean. You know, you'll have a gunshot to the face or buckets of boiling water being poured on someone's body. It's always very visceral and nasty in the best way possible, you know, to me. You know, The Promised Land is the kind of movie that serves as a nice palate cleanser to a month like January that offered terrible and mediocre cinematic experiences. You have a great and compelling story. You have charismatic performances from especially from Mads Mikkelsen and De Schinkel, as I now call him, and some gorgeous scenes of beauty and of violence. And it's most certainly a better alternative to garbage like Matthew Vaughn's Argyle, which is out right now. But yeah, I do hope a lot more people check out this film. I think it's very deserving of it. I know, you know, we have, of course, you know, limited foreign releases, and they don't always do especially well in the United States unless they, you know, really get into the pop culture zeitgeist. But if you're in the mood of seeing something a little different, you're in the mood of seeing like a foreign Western, or a competently made historical epic. I know we got disappointing historical epics last year, like, you know, Ridley Scott's Napoleon, which I feel like, you know, tripped over its own feet every chance it got. But something like this, I think, is like very, very special, and one that I would highly recommend. But what about you guys? Were any of you aware of the existence of The Promised Land? You know, for those of you who might have seen it this past week, which it does have a limited theatrical release right now. I don't know if it's going to expand you know, in its release schedule. But were you able to check it out? Are you interested now in checking it out? Those you have seen it, did you like? Did you dislike? Or are you more in between? Please go ahead and let me know. But what about you guys? I'm actually curious if you guys had the opportunity to check out this movie. And if not, if you're interested now, hope my review helped sell it for you. Let's see. Who else is here? Naya Brownie hard hands. This is a colonization prequel, correct? This is like what if like Danes were colonizing themselves, colonizing their own peasants, pretty much that. So in a way, Naya, yes, it kind of is. Let's see here. Benishaberg, you always pronounce the J with the Y sound. I'm gonna call him De Schinkel. His name is De Schinkel now. I don't know how to say any of those fancy names. Listen, it's either going to be Bjork, or it's going to be Swedish Chef, or De Schinkel. I'm going to call him De Schinkel, Chad. That's his name now.